It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Good morning and welcome to our newly formed Airport Committee. I'd like to start off by thanking Chairman Anthony Rodriguez for the faith placed on the members in this committee, and also recognizing, although he chose to not be here with us today, our dear friend Keon Hardiman for his last 4 years as chair and his leadership in the historic funding that we've invested in our airport to modernize it and move it forward. My goal as this committee's chair is to continue those efforts working alongside my colleagues here. Our airport, as we all know, is our community's #1 economic engine. I think the airport director was telling me nearly 55 million people went through that airport last year. It's their first and last impression as they come to and from our community. And while progress has been made, its current state is not acceptable to our community, to myself, and the goal of this committee will be to take bold action to continue and expedite its modernization. Whether it's upgrading elevators, escalators, moving walkways, or passenger loading bridges, to remodeling our restrooms, to building new terminals, or holding our vendors accountable, mediocrity and complacency will not be tolerated. Business as usual, and this is the way we've always done things, ends today. Now let's get to work. Let's open up reasonable opportunity to be heard for the public. I don't believe we have any speaker cards, so it is now open. Anybody wanting to step up? It is now closed. So now I believe we have the approval of the agenda.
You have no changes to your printed agenda, Mr. Chair. A motion to set the agenda is in order.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against? Passes. Do any of my colleagues have any items they'd like to pull for discussion?
I just want to discuss the janitorial contract. I don't necessarily need to pull it. I do have some, actually, let me just pull it so I can ask some questions, please.
So do we have a motion to pass the rest of the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Nay. Passes. The janitorial was, which one is this?
Item 3C.
3C. Okay, so we're on 3C.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to note that the administration is requesting the advancement of items 3A and 3D.
Yes.
I just wanted to note that for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On 3C, can someone explain to me what the expiration date is on these janitorial contracts? It's my understanding that there's a bit of a discrepancy on whether the expiration is January 31st or the end of February. So can I get clarification on when the expiration is of these janitorial contracts?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Madam Chair. So, Madam Vice Chair, the expiration dates for the two emergency ratification, the contracts that are being considered for ratification today are end of February, February 28th of this year. So those contracts were enacted approximately 6 months ago to continue continuity of service on the janitorial front while the procurement department finalizes the procurement for the permanent replacement contracts. And that process has been completed and is in the process of being, those two items are in the process of being placed on agenda for approval by the board.
Okay, and so the item before us today is an extension just for the period of a month or 2 months, but the values are $2 million and $1.3 million. And I just want to be clear on the time periods for those dollar amounts. So we're approving $2 million for, is it 6 months, and $1.3 million for 4 months?
That's correct. It's those two time periods for those two different contracts to extend us to the end of February, beginning of March of this year.
Okay, and are those companies here that have the item before the board this morning, 3C, the two companies that are at issue for these extensions?
I do not believe we have representation from the two firms here today.
Okay, and that's okay. My point is a simple one. I'm going to support the item, but I appreciate our chairman's opening comments that he shared with us this morning. I share his feelings and his sentiments. Director, we're in constant communication. I know you're in constant communication with our chairman as well. And when I see janitorial contracts, whether it's for a 6-month period or a 10-year period, I want to send a message to those companies that are doing the janitorial work at Miami International Airport that we are watching closely. I know, Director, you're watching closely. I know our chairman is watching closely. We want our airport to be reflective of the amazing community that is Miami-Dade County, and I know that's a goal and a mission that you share. And to the end of our chairman's opening statement that business as usual will not be kind of accepted here, I think it would be helpful for us as a committee for you to give us regular, whether it's on an agenda or not, regular updates as to how our escalators are being repaired and replaced, how our moving walkways are being repaired and replaced, how our elevators are being repaired and replaced. Because as commissioners, as you know, we are the ones who get the comments and the calls and the emails saying, why does our airport look like this? It would be helpful to us if we were able to report on a monthly or an as regular basis as possible, that out of 10 or 200 moving walkways that were previously not repaired, now, 50 of those are now repaired. So I know it's not on an agenda, but if you are prepared to give us any update on those key issues this morning, I'd greatly appreciate it. Because if my memory serves me correctly, it wasn't long ago that we approved a very large contract.
$600 million.
Thank you, Chairman. $600 million. And what happens is we get these items, we approve the contract, and then we never see it again until and unless there's an issue. I'd prefer that if we're awarding any company, I think it was Schindler in that instance, $600 million, that we are regularly updated on what's happening with that $600 million. So how many so again, I don't want to be redundant, and again, I know it's not on our agenda, but are you prepared to give us an update on these kind of key things that we constantly get complaints about at Miami?
I'm going to step in really quickly. Excuse me, Mr. Director. He actually does with me, but I'd recommend you do it with the rest of them as well. But I do want to commend him because we do speak regularly. I know that we just got 7 brand new units as part of that contract in the garages. That was one of the places where we had the oldest elevators. I think some of them were upwards of 40 years old. Its lifespan are usually 20. So I know 7 units are up or about to be up in the garages. So again, I know we have that conversation all the time, but I think it would be helpful if you have it with the rest of the members of this committee as well.
I'm prepared to give you a very brief update today on where we're at, and the news is very good, Madam Vice Chair, so if you'd like, I can go ahead and do that right now.
If it's okay with our chair, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so let's talk about conveyances first. So we have made tremendous progress on the conveyance front, and a lot of that has been reported in the media. I'm sure you've seen it. So a little context and background. Last year, we were at about 85% of our units were operational. To add a little perspective to the conversation, we have 616 units at MIA. The entire county and all of its facilities has 1,200, so more than half of all the county's units are at MIA. And obviously, our units have a lot more wear and tear than the rest of the county because we're a 24/7 operation. So we take a lot more wear and tear. And to the chair's point, yeah, this year we had our 3rd straight record-breaking year, nearly 56 million passengers in the year. So that's our 3rd straight record-breaking year. So that adds even more wear and tear to our units. So we were at 85% last year. With the number of passengers we had, and during the holidays, we had our busiest holiday season. We had about a little bit over 3 million passengers during the holiday season, which is our biggest holiday season ever in our history. So we had 95% of our units were operational. Only 5% were out of service. More important than that statistic is the fact that of the 5% that are out of service, they're all out of service for a reason. So in other words, at the beginning of every day, the units that can be up and running and that have to be up and running are up and running. The 5% that are not are either because they're undergoing a modernization, which is a replacement, or a major repair, or a major, what we call a heavy maintenance cycle, which all of our units have to undergo once a year. So out of the 35 to 40 units that we have down, and we actually had, and the chair is aware because he received my text, we had, at some point, we had 29, 28 units down, so we were actually in the 96% range. But the good news is, to your point, the $681 million investment that the board approved back a year and a half ago, we're starting to see traction on it as we speak right now, because we're modernizing 30 units a year, and that cadence that we want us to establish has been established. So right now, the next 30 units are already being surveyed, and the design and engineering process for those has begun as we modernize the current 30 that we're working on. So we have units down. You were at the airport the other day, and thank you for coming, and you saw some of that going on, some of the barriers being put up, and the gentleman working from Schindler and other companies. So that's the good news. We are really making traction on that, and to me, it's positive because when you go from 85% to 95%, that's a significant improvement considering the volume and the wear and tear that we're seeing. And also that we are modernizing and upgrading the ones that are down. So that will improve the numbers moving forward in the future. So that's really good news on the conveyance front. You mentioned restrooms. As of today, we have 48 restrooms that have been completed, totally renovated. We have another 10 under construction, 8 in permitting, and another 141 in design. So out of the 447 restrooms total in the terminal, it's a big number, phase 1, which accounts for about half of all the restrooms, they're currently being addressed, either under construction, in permitting, completed, or under design. So really good news on that front, and if you've been, I'm not sure if you got a chance, if our staff had a chance to show you the restrooms when you were out last week, but you can see they're totally different and brand new and just state-of-the-art from our older restrooms. So very good news on that front. When it comes to our loading bridges, the chair mentioned, we've replaced so far 32 of our 128 loading bridges have been replaced. We have another 10 bridges that a contract that was just awarded that we're going to be replacing over the next couple of years, the next 10. And moving forward over the next 6-7 years, we'll replace all the rest of them. 2 pieces of good news on that front. All the bridges from now on will all be glass. You'll see that when you come out on the tour. Out of the 32 that we've completed, 2 of them are glass. The rest are just normal steel bridges. But we decided to have a pilot with two glass bridges, one at 817 and one at D14. And we've gotten such good feedback on the glass because it provides a much better customer experience. It's a little more expensive on the front end, but it's a lot cheaper on the maintenance side because glass doesn't rust and you have a lot less metal parts. But it provides our customers, when they're waiting to board a flight, a tremendous experience because you have, instead of being in a very claustrophobic metal environment, you have a very pleasant view of the airfield. So those 2 glass bridges, the pilot was so successful that we made the decision to go all glass from now on. And that puts us in line with the rest of the industry in Europe and other places where everybody's going to that new type of bridge, which is all glass. So very good news. Just those 3 modernization projects, we've gotten a lot of traction on, and we're making a lot of good progress in that regard. Our terminal-wide roof replacement project is about 90% design. Excuse me, and we should start the bidding process for that sometime later this year, hopefully, and that will replace about 430,000 square feet of roof and address a lot of the leaks, some of which have already been repaired, but just permanent roof replacement in those areas. So again, on the modernization end, we're making a lot of tremendous progress. On the capital plan, we have our South Terminal Expansion, Concourse K, which is the final phases of the solicitation process. And we hope to break ground on that sometime later this year. We're going to be breaking ground on our new hotel in the next couple of months. So again, we're starting to see the progress that we've been hoping for and that we've been working so hard to get to over the last couple of years come to fruition now. So we're excited about 2025, and we have a lot of good things happening, and I will be glad to report on our progress at these meetings or at the board, at your request, whether it's on an agenda or not. We're glad to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you for that update, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing him to provide the same.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I want to commend my colleague, Vice Chair Cohen-Higgins for that statement, because I think that, Ralph, you got put on the spot and you just delivered an incredible update. And I have to agree with Chairman Cabrera. You and I are on the phone all the time, and you give me these updates all the time. But to the point of the vice chair, we really have to perhaps do this publicly, right? And this would be at the complete discretion and at the will of the chair of this committee. But perhaps we could do this maybe every other meeting, where we have maybe a formal disclosure of what's going on in the airport. Many times you see people attacking MIA and saying this and saying that, but we oftentimes don't talk about the great successes, not only in MIA, but let's be frank, right? Miami Executive Airport is one of the greatest airports in Miami-Dade County. Right? And we have other airports in Miami that are making tremendous strides. Perhaps, Mr. Chair, completely up to your discretion. It's just a suggestion, but perhaps we could do something a little bit more formal. Don't want to put more on your plate, but this was extremely helpful. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez, and I think absolutely, Ralph will be here anyways, so he might as well have something to report to us.
Glad to do it.
And while Miami Executive is great, MIA might be a little bit better, just saying, for the record. The one in District 6. And we recognize Commissioner Hardeman has joined us. Welcome, Commissioner. To the vein of the janitorial item that we were discussing a little bit earlier, I will add that I don't think almost anybody is happy with the current state of janitorial services at the airport, and we'll be discussing that in the following meeting in February. But I will add, for anybody who is bidding, anybody that is attempting to contract, don't tell me that you gave a price and you gave the best you could for that price. Don't bid on it if you can't provide good service. If you're going to bid, make sure that you can provide good service at that price. If you cannot, then don't bid. That's not what we want. We don't want lackluster service. We don't want your bare minimum. We want your best. And if you can't bid at the price that we're asking for, then don't do it. So do we have a motion on 3C?
I'm happy to move 3C, Mr. Chair.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All those against? It passes. Also, we need a motion for 3A and 3D to be waived to the 22nd BCC meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's against. It passes. And lastly, Mr. Director, we're looking forward, obviously, to the report on the future capacity at MIA that I know you said is upcoming, and on a potential replacement should we need to move forward with that process. So again, looking forward to that. And again, it's about being forward thinking. A lot of times, government, I'm not saying this is strictly Miami-Dade County, but government as a whole doesn't look at a problem until it arrives at its doorstep. So it's about making sure we're being forward thinking, and if we are going to reach that capacity, make sure we are ready for it. So thank you again. Looking forward to that report. Is there anything else you all would like to discuss? With that, we are entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Adjourned.
Thank you.